So for this assignment, looking at how ProQuest historical documents can support a HIUS 222 course. This provides immediate opportunity to show off college reading comprehension and document analysis, allows for identifying major figures such as former U.S. presidents, a U.S. senator, labor leaders, and radicals prosecuted in sensational nationally covered trials. Figures topics lend themselves quite well to historiographical evaluation and can include a biblical view as well. I always try to connect more to my local area. It always impacted me as a student, knowing that our local high school bleacher stands were a WPA project, or that there was a canal that ended in the port of Westfield. My approach is to look at some of the movements that impacted America from the turn of the century until the 20s, including the City Beautiful movement, the labor movement, as well as cultural and economic factors on how immigrants were perceived, and major episodes of violence and even terrorism like the one committed right where I am standing today. I'm here at the Springfield Municipal Group at Court Square, the collection of buildings that include City Hall, the Symphony Orchestra, as well as a distinctive bell tower. And while it was under construction, on April 5th, 1911 at 2 a.m., anarchist Orty McManigal tried to blow it up. He failed. He did knock a 1-foot hole through a wall, but the bell tower was untouched, though I'm told windows all through Main Street were blown out. He was famous for successfully blowing up the LA Times building on October of 1910, killing 21 people, and many other targets over a 9-year explosive reign of terror. He was eventually caught and confessed to a sabotage national plot implicating John McNamara, the Secretary General of the International Association of Bridge and Structural Iron Workers. McManigal would only serve 2 years because he flipped on McNamara, who would receive a life sentence and die in San Quentin. All this can be referenced in the documents, and I would make connections to Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma bombing. Secondly, these buildings themselves are part of the City Beautiful movement inspired by Daniel Burnham's White City at the 1893 Chicago Columbian Exposition World's Fair, and were an attempt at both urban renewal and a way of transforming immigrants into good democratic citizens. It was the result of a national architectural competition. When it opened in 1913, William Howard Taft, the former president, dedicated it on December 8th. Provides a lot of material. He would then write a piece for the Washington Post predicting re-election for governor of Massachusetts Calvin Coolidge. There was some question because of the Boston police strike. They were controlled by the city of Boston but paid for by the state, and when they went on strike, the commissioner had them declared as deserters as defined by the state's attorney general and fired. Legendary U.S. Senator Henry Cabot Lodge referred to the strike as the first step to Sovietizing the country. In 1919, 1/5 of the nation's workers would go on strike. This, of course, provides a detour to talk about the Red Scare of 1919-1920 and the Palmer raids. In fact, 800 suspected radicals were rounded up in New England around Boston, including industrial areas like Lawrence, Brockton, Lynn, Fitchburg, and Chelsea. 2 of those arrested in the raids included Italian anarchists Nicolas Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti, who were tried with murder and robbery. They would die in the electric chair in Massachusetts after being convicted on August 23, 1927 at the Charleston State Prison. The case remains controversial to this day. Back to the strike, economic troubles brought about by a brief recession in post-World War America, and actually this provides a neat area of comparison to the Great Depression and considering Milton Friedman's The Great Contraction themes regarding the actions of the Federal Reserve in both the recession after World War I and those after the 1929 market crash. No less than legendary labor leader AFL President Samuel Gompers pressured Coolidge to back the police. Instead, he supported Commissioner Curtis and gave the famous response, "There is no right to strike against the public safety by anybody, anywhere, anytime." All this played out in the newspapers of the time, set the stage for Calvin Coolidge to be seen as a law and order type, popular enough to be the vice presidential candidate for Warren Harding in 1920. And then, of course, newspaper accounts of Harding's death bring a nice conclusion to the exercise. I think this is a nice vehicle to touch on a quite bit of impactful 20th century history.